Welcome, my name is Maren Gube, and today we bring you a short video on accessible teaching and learning online. With the unplanned shift to remote teaching in the spring of 2020, university students suddenly lost their familiar routines and their learning communities. Now, many students are still experiencing difficulties adjusting. At the same time, professors and staff are working harder than ever to try to bring engaging and inclusive learning experiences that still allow for community and collaboration. So with me today, remotely of course, is Dr. Julia Phelan. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much.
Julia, what would you suggest to a professor who wants to create a more engaged and more collaborative online community in his or her courses?
So in any situation, we really need to start with, how does learning work? And not just how we would like it to work, but how it really, really works, right? And then we can figure out, are there any conditions or constraints imposed by the particular environment, in this case, being online, that mean we need to maybe make some adjustments or some tweaks. You can kind of gauge, right, how your material is being received, when you're teaching something, by if everyone's nodding or if everyone's looking puzzled. And you lose a lot of that in the online environment, but there are ways that we can help make sure that students feel a sense of belonging and a sense of community. If a student has barriers to engaging in a learning experience, it doesn't matter how great of a learning experience you've created.
So what are some of the strategies that you would specifically suggest for that?
So I think that really thinking about, again, every student having different reasons that they might be feeling, unmotivated, or might be feeling that they cannot, connect. And so there are things that you can do, like, thinking about, let's say, your syllabus. When you're designing your syllabus, there are ways that you can, provide structure and be very, very clear about your expectations for the course in a sort of friendly, welcoming way, right? So rather than just saying when your office hours are, for example, telling students that you welcome the opportunity to get to know them, right? And creating opportunities for students to participate and contribute just as you would in a face-to-face environment. So let's say if normally you ask students questions and maybe have them raise their hand, in a online environment you can still pose questions, and if you want to make it a little bit less stressful for students who maybe have anxiety about participating, you can use clickers in Zoom classes, so you can ask questions and have students just anonymously respond. And that has a couple of benefits. One, it helps to sort of get students engaged and listen and think about the questions you're asking. And it can also give the students some opportunity to see, like, wow, I had a misunderstanding about this, and I see that half of the class did too.
We know from the research that active learning promotes long-term student success. So what are some specific suggestions that you could offer to make active learning more accessible in this online environment that we're in now?
I like to think about it just as it's having students actually doing something, right? Actually engaging and participating in the learning experience. Another thing that I really like to do is I like to bring in video clips from movies. So any movie I'm watching, I'll be all the time in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this a good example that I could use in when I'm teaching somebody something to help them sort of make a connection or see, maybe understand something that they may have misconceptions about.
Yeah, to really sort of make it authentic and bring it into their lived experiences as well.
Right, right. And also get them, I think it's important to get people to see that, that whatever you're learning about doesn't just exist within that classroom environment, whatever type of classroom it is, it exists in the real world. And there are lots of applications you can make to, something that you see in a movie or a TV show or you read about in the newspaper. But again, making a connection and helping students see that what they're doing, is relevant and authentic. And I think another way to really sort of promote this kind of active learning and active participation is to give demonstrations and have students sort of learn about a concept and kind of see it in action. So if you're describing, let's say, some psychological phenomenon, that produces some effect, you can actually, rather than just talking about it, you can have students engage in a brief experiment, where you show them stimuli and you have them remember things or whatever it might be. And again, rather than just telling them like how that particular thing works, they actually get to see it and they actually get to experience it.
So how do you think we could be thinking about assessment in this environment that we are now finding ourselves in?
If we try and look for a silver lining in all of this, it's giving a lot of people an opportunity to sort of think maybe a little bit more purposefully about some of their practices. And I think assessment is one of those areas where, when we start to think about, okay, does the type of assessment maybe that we've been giving in the face-to-face environment, does that work in the online environment? Maybe, maybe not. So, if we have more frequent, sort of lower stakes assessment opportunities throughout a semester or throughout a term, that has many benefits. One, it gives students a little bit more information that they can actually act on. And it also can reduce some of that anxiety. And when we reduce the anxiety and we try and help students see that we're giving them sort of checks for understanding along the way to really help them to engage in that learning process, then it feels less of a sort of a contentious situation and more that that you're all on the same page and you're all trying to achieve the same goal. What are some projects or activities or assignments that we can give to students that will allow them to really, demonstrate and show their voice? We can give them some choices in the type of things that we're asking them to do. So
you can really look at multiple ways of arriving at your destination, basically, and being a bit more creative maybe in coming up with how it is that you want your students to demonstrate that they have actually been learning.
I think, as I said earlier, I think it's an opportunity for us to examine our practices and think a little bit more, carefully and purposefully about, are we making sure that, we're taking into consideration the diversity of the population of learners that we have and making sure that everyone feels welcome, everyone feels that they can participate and understands the expectations of the experience and is able to demonstrate that they've achieved them.
Great. Well, Julia, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. Really great chatting with you.
Thank you. You too. Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks for being with us today. There was not a lot of time to discuss these topics, so we're going to be putting out a brochure that is going to give you more detail with some tips and tricks that you will hopefully be able to apply in your own teaching and learning online. Thank you.